Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Tatiana Show. As you all know, I'm putting out my album this week. My album comes out tomorrow, actually, and it's a crypto-funded record. And I've been sort of pulling in my different friends in the music community that have an interest in blockchain. And there's no one that I'm more excited to speak with so far. Actually, shoot, now I'm making it sound like I have preferences. I take it all back. Every guess is equal always.
No guests are created equal. I'm the best one so far.
Okay, fine. No, I really like what Benji's doing. I think it's really exciting. So Benji, welcome to the show. Benji Rogers, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. How's it going?
I am very well. I'm excited to have a chat about my favorite two things, blending together into one, solving and saving the world as a little ice cream cone on the top. So for people who are not familiar with you, maybe you can give me a little background. People don't know about Pledge and stuff like that. So fill us in.
Sure. So I'm a recovered musician. I spent most of my life making albums and touring. I was about 34 years old, living on an air mattress in my mom's spare room, trying to figure out what had gone wrong with my life. And decided to build a company, which was PledgeMusic. It kind of popped into my head, basically as a way to get artists funded while they were making albums. I saw plenty, my philosophy was fans don't need more ways to experience music, they need reasons. And the making of an album is a momentous event. I've done a few of them. But what occurred to me was all music is crowdfunded. All music is. It's a question of when you ask the fans to pay for it, and whether you take out a massive loan with 110% interest to pay for it. And so I'd never done a tech platform before, and got together with four of my best friends and decided to create one.
How old were you guys?
I was 34, so that was 8 years ago now. But really the concept was that there was no Kickstarter at the time. There was no Indiegogo. Kickstarter launched about 3 months before we did, so I got to watch that platform grow. But we wanted to be only music and basically make it about that, and it was very successful as a result. And then I stopped playing music and started to go into tech. And about 2.5 years ago, I started to read about Bitcoin and blockchain, and that's when my brain went, I think I've been able to help fix part one, which is the funding of music. Now let's fix part two, which is the dissemination / value propagation around music. And so about a year ago, I started to publish blogs about a proposed architecture called the .blockchain music project. And then we released phase one into GitHub in about August or September, I think it was, of this year. And now I'm closing the funding round to deliver phases 2 and 3 of an open sourced public benefit corporation to help solve the music rights miasma or horror that it could be. So yeah, that's me.
Wow. Okay. First of all, it was a great overview. I like it. You took me through a lot of things that I was interested about. So tell me, okay, I'm an artist. How do I use .blockchain? Why do I need that?
Well, at the moment you wouldn't use it, but for now, because we're still kind of getting out of the gate. But in theory,
sure.
Basically every single artist wants to register their works. And the particular problem that .blockchain is trying to solve is that today, when you create a work, how does the world know it's you? And the publishing and performance side, so songs have two sides for anyone who doesn't know this. Someone who writes the song and someone who performs the song. So if you think of the song Crazy by Patsy Cline, that was written by Willie Nelson. So when Patsy's performance is played, Willie gets paid, in theory. But if you went onto Spotify and you looked at the song Crazy, you'd see Patsy Cline, you'd see the label, but you wouldn't see Willie's information in there. And so what that's led to is the top 100 songs on Spotify do not actually represent the publishers a lot of the time, because there may be 15, 20 writers to a song. So what occurred to me is that the music industry has no actual assets in the traditional sense of an asset. So like in theory, this file that has this song on it is an asset. But it's not, because I can take any file that's presented to me, any song, I can go Apple I, and I can alter all of its metadata and upload it to any website I want. And no one would ever know, because how do you identify the works? So the specific root problem we're trying to solve with .blockchain is I want every writer and every performer to be able to create a true digital asset which contains the publishing and performance side, and I want that information to be anchored into a blockchain, and that way when the information is updated or changed or you sell something, it's consistent throughout all the places. So basically the goal is to create a massive global decentralized database of music rights every time a song is created. And alterations to ownership and changes to ownership are kept persistent from past works going forward and from forward works going into the future. And it would start at the workstation and end with the distribution. And it puts what I like to call, well, it's not what I like to call it, there's actually a W3C standard being developed around this, permission and obligation into the file itself. So, you know, I'm sure people listening to this are familiar with smart contracts and all that kind of stuff. I think that's amazing, but how do you prove that you own it? And how do you have it so that when you create a song and you send it to me and the right people get paid, how do you stop me from going Apple I, changing all the information and saying it's other than that? You know, so blockchain isn't the only answer. Blockchain is a big piece of the problem, but you know, ultimately, ownership of who owns what and how to pay them is probably the biggest challenge in the music industry today. And that's the bit we want to solve.
So then how does it, okay, so I'm the artist and I'm putting it in there, and obviously this is a massive thing to get everybody to participate, right? Okay, so are you guys going out and making all the relationships with all the different people that would need this information, and they all have to agree to do it?
So I have a background in obviously, like, you know, as a musician, artist, performer, etc. So I've got a lot of the relationships that are required, and our positioning on this has been, we're going to put something into the open source community. So basically, today there is an application sitting in GitHub that you can trial. It's just to kind of prove that it exists. But ultimately, the goal was to have something that any songwriter, any artist can use from day one, create this smart asset, and they would prove who they are and their relationships by tagging, much like you would on Facebook. If you remember back in the days when you first heard about Facebook, it was probably because someone tagged you in a photo, and you got an email that said, Benji just tagged Tatiana in a photo. And if you went to Facebook, so to view the photo, you have to go to Facebook. And if you hit yes, that's me, you're creating the digital asset. If you hit no, that's not me, you're verifying that it's not you within the picture, therefore you're creating truth. If you ignore it, it's true. So we're applying the same methodology. So basically, we've done partnerships with 5 big media companies to help kind of get this thing kicked off. But ultimately, if you, Tatiana, want to make a claim about your work, you say, this is my work, I'm the writer and the performer, and you tag your performing rights organization, your label, your PRO, you know, all the parties attached to it. And what you would find is that you would build over time this identity class. This is who I am. This is the song as I represent it. And so to try and come in and for me to try and be you, to like try and overwhelm the system, I would have to prove who I am to all the people that you're related to within the ecosystem. So it'd be very hard to do. So if I wanted to say that I'm Beyonce, I would have to tag her management, her label, her publishing, her PRO, and everybody else. And I would have to cryptographically say, this song is Single Ladies, my version that I own. So it's very much using the way that Tim Berners-Lee thought about the semantic web, which is that we will make claims about each other. The difference is, if you start to make claims in a blockchain-based system, then the first ID that is created and everything that happens subsequent to that can be mapped backwards to who owns it and how to contact and pay them. So we're applying basically a Facebook graph method to creating truth in blockchains.
So you're saying that you're verifying the identity based on your connections around you to make it seem like, okay.
We aren't.
Is that correct?
We aren't verifying it. We are providing the rail upon which you can prove who you are in relation to other people. So the first partnership we did was with the Canadian Performing Rights Organization, SOCAN. And SOCAN basically have a bunch of rights information. They also have MediaNet, and MediaNet has 57 million sound recordings, and Fuga and CD Baby and Song Trust, our other partners, have all this information. So we can basically bootstrap a system from that. And then the goal is that every publisher, PRO, label, distributor, digital fingerprinting company, sync licensing company build plugins, much like you would, build email programs around IMAP or POP3. They will build plugins to be able to use it. So if you want to build your own artist coins, you want to do all that kind of thing, you can do that. You're totally within your rights to do that, because we're going to be a neutral kind of layer in between all of it. So the blockchain's here doing what it does. Public layer showing all the public information, private layer showing it with business rules between the parties, and the ownership and status of that is basically interrelational to who wants to use it. An example would be Spotify right now is facing multiple lawsuits because it doesn't know who to pay on the publishing side. So the answer has always been, well, go to Harry Fox or MRI, one of these companies, and figure out who to pay. I think it should be the opposite way. We should tell Spotify who to pay. And we should build identity on the system and authority in the work so that we make it available to Spotify at terms that we set. So Spotify, here's the song. Ownership is secure because you can see my PROs corroborated it, my labels corroborated it, my my co-writer, my bass player, my guitarist, everyone's wrapped into the song. And if you remove the music, the data is useless. And if you remove the data, the music's useless because it's not interrelated to anything. Whereas today, every single other method I've seen of getting music into the blockchain has involved use my blockchain, or but who are you in relation to what? Because you, the artist, may say, I am this person, but how do you prove that? And what stops me from taking your song, turning it into an MP3, rewriting all the metadata and uploading it to YouTube? How does YouTube know that that's the truth? And so we have to create this identity within blockchains, which isn't really done right now. It's only done at the wallet level. And that's really the way that we're looking at it, is to say we want to help every artist register and verify who they are in relation to their works, so that if you're an artist and you create a song and you say not to be played at Donald Trump rallies, you can specify that as a preference. It's not legally binding, but you would be going against the wish of the artist if you were to disobey the rules. So again, the work goes out with permission to use it and obligation, which says, this is my per stream rate. This is how I want to get paid. This is, this is the key signature. All that stuff is hard coded into the media itself, so that if you were to remove the media, it wouldn't be readable to most machines. That's the goal.
Okay. Okay, so are you guys actually selling the music for the artists as well, or are they just registering it there? And what blockchain are you going to use? Have you thought about that?
In great detail, yeah.
I'm sure.
So we're not going to be a seller of music. That would be a plugin. So Spotify or whatever interface that surfaces between the artist and the fan, that's all to be built on the rail. Again, we want to facilitate the bundle, the music to be a bundle that can be traded. So how it's traded is not for us to say. That's between the rules of the parties that build authority. We just want to basically make it interoperable between them all, and make that there's a minimum amount of data that has to go in to create the work itself. That's the key. As far as the blockchain, we are in conversations with most of the major blockchain providers. It needs to do some very specific things, this blockchain. There needs to be a public element to it and a private element. It may be two blockchains. I don't think a currency-based blockchain makes sense for this, because I think it would be too difficult for people to run. So it might be permissioned, a permissionless and a permissioned one. But we're open to it right now. So we're just basically in discussions with them. We're building the architecture actually on a kind of like a fake blockchain to kind of, so that we can measure the throughput that's needed. Because ultimately what a lot of the blockchain companies have gone for is, we want to do registration, smart contracts, and micropayments. And I have yet to find the need for a micropayment. I don't know that I need to get a quarter of a penny every time something's used. I need to get $10 when it's been used that number of times. Tracking to me is more important than the actual payment side of things. And if you look at the current state of the music industry, where one performing rights organization in the UK is tracking 3 trillion streams a year, to make 3 trillion micropayments doesn't, in one territory alone, and split those out across maybe 16 to 20 different people per time, I don't get the use case for that. I get the use case for tracking it and understanding what happens, but I don't get the use case for the actual mechanism of blockchain having to fire out that many things that many times. It doesn't add up to me. And so we've basically not kicked it down the line, but we've said first comes registration, then comes contracts based on authority within what's been registered, then comes payment mechanisms afterwards. And in time, I think it'll be for multiple blockchains providers to say, hey, we should be the blockchain for this. Hey, we should be the blockchain for this. And our answer is going to be whatever can handle the throughput, whatever the people using it want to use, great. That's kind of the key to this system. We're in intense discussions with a lot of the blockchain providers, but to me, this has got to be industrial strength, absolutely robust to handle that level of transaction volume. And I think that the blockchain industry has done a disservice to itself when it goes to all of these music companies and says, we can do real-time micropayments. And it's like, can you really do 3 trillion micropayments in real time and keep media on chain and confirm everybody? Like, is that possible? I have a hard time believing that, doing 6, 10, 15 trillion transactions is doable. Not that I'm saying it won't be in the future, but I don't know of many cloud infrastructures that could handle it right now on their own. So
I think sometimes people will build like a combination, some off-chain solutions and then some on.
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote down a whole bunch of questions.
Cool.
How does this affect performance rights organizations? Like, how would they interplay with this?
Sure. Well, so basically, the performance rights organizations would serve multiple functions. One of which they track play, so that they won't need a more accurate way to pay out specifically to the parties involved. So our first partner is a PRO. Our first partner coming in is a performance rights organization. So we're in discussions with multiple PROs at the moment about this. They ultimately want to serve their members better. And they can't do that right now because the infrastructure of literally knowing who to pay doesn't properly exist yet. So I view them as going, I'm an ASCAP member, and today I get a royalty statement that doesn't tell me there's no specifics in it. That's insane. It's 2017. Is it $35 or $5,000? I don't know, because it's just miscellaneous income. That's got to go, right? So in our conversations and as a performer myself and an artist myself, I'm going to go with the PRO that allows me to do more work and get paid more. And if PRO is looking at a blockchain solution and if it's the right one, I'll go with it. If it's not the right one, I won't go with it. So there are partners in this. And all the PROs are looking at blockchains, and all of them are, again, sitting there saying, can your blockchain handle the size and scale of what we're doing? And I think you'd be hard pressed to look at that transaction volume and say, yes, we can do that right now. And I think also it's about, like, a lot of the blockchain companies I know, again, they're building the phenomenal solutions for the future, absolutely. But the question I would ask is, what problem are you solving? What's the actual problem here? And I would argue that the problem is not smart contracts, and the problem is not payments. The problem is ownership. That's the hardest bit, because Spotify is being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars over 37 copyrights, because it literally doesn't know who to send a letter to. Like, this is all archaic and it has to go. So really, I think, I spoke at a meeting of publishers 2 days ago in Montreal, and it just basically said, why is your information as publishers not built into the song? Why does it have to live somewhere else? Why does it, what is the purpose of it being here? And it comes down to, I think, ultimately, blockchains do one thing really, really well. Smart contracts are amazing, and all those micropayments and splitting payments is amazing. But one of the things they do really well is they anchor a digital event in time and space. That is powerful. And today, I have to create a physical representation of something and send it somewhere, and that's to fix in a tangible form. So if you look at copyright, to fix in a tangible form, what is tangible about an asset created that's embedded in the blockchain, that has a bunch of smart contracts attached to it, if it's not truly owned by the person who says that they own it? And if I can take that asset and restripe it with all of my own information and re-upload it, how will you know it's not, it's the actual person? So identity is everything. And this is one of the things that I come back to all the time is what problem is a blockchain there to solve? And to me, phase one, anchor in time and space. Phase two, create truth. Phase three, build contracts on top. Phase four, deal with the financial side. Because you can't get a true financial picture until you know that the person who owns it is the person that owns it. And how do you do that today? You know, we have methods of getting to identity, but you know, if you're an artist today out there listening to this, how do I know that you wrote the song? Because you said you did? Great. How do you know that Willie Nelson wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline? Right? The answer is there's a contract sitting somewhere in a back room that someone will come and fight you with. But the problem is that the problem's already started. So what you have to do is go backwards, and you have to think to yourself, what's the first hardest problem to solve? It's the biggest one. It's if the publishing information is held on 180 databases over here, and the performance information is held in 300 databases over here, and there's 4,000 other databases which don't speak a common language, and you've got ISRCs for performance and ISWCs for publishing, and you can't square them to the actual asset, what is the point of it all? Because no matter how many assets you create, I can create more. It's an endless whack-a-mole. So ownership leads to everything. And I think that you know, the biggest sort of thing that we've proposed in .blockchain is all of the smart contracting engines out there and all of the extraordinary work that's being done are all vital, and they will lead to a healthy marketplace. You know, if Ethereum is going to run the blockchain that runs the entire media industry, amazing, great. Let's get ownership right first. And then the Ethereum consensus can come along and say, guys, girls, we can do all the blockchain stuff for you. Here, check it out. And we can put smart contract, we can do all that stuff as well. But if we don't know who owns it and we can't get the music industry to do it, then we got to start from scratch. And starting from scratch is really hard because you're having to shut down or compete with an $18 billion industry, which doesn't want to just lie down and die, you know?
Right. Do you think that there's an advantage or a disadvantage to larger independent artists? Is there anything that, you know, because you're talking about partnerships with a lot of larger companies.
Yep.
Is there a place at the table that is with an equal portion for independent artists, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we've approached this has been simply that the first version of the app, real simple, totally bare bones, iOS, OS X app only, is so an artist or songwriter can create one. It begins there, and then then you scale up towards enterprise level. But again, it's open source, so you can build your own interface into it. We're not the only game in town on purpose. We have no authority, and we're not the only game in town. So it is kind of decentralized in that sense. The difference is we're starting it from a bootstrapped authority mechanism in order to create identities in it. But we're not going to tell people how to use it. It'll have some basic hardcore rules in, and the primary one, which sounds, you know, massively simple, but it is really simple, is this: you can't create a song in the absence of one publisher's information, one piece of writer's information, and that writer then has to, you know, reference themselves to another writer, to their social network profiles, to the PRO that they work with, on and on, so that way they can entangle themselves in all the things that happen from then on in. The bass player who plays on the track, the DJ who remixes it, all of that information needs to be within the work. And that, you know, we're not talking about like an actual music file that will move around. It's a wrapper that shows you the current state of truth as it's seen by the network. And so you're incentivized to get better data in, because the faster you get better data in, the more likely you are to get paid. And our thinking along this has really been that, like, it has to work for every single songwriter, every single artist, and that's who I build for. I built Pledge in the same way. It's got to work for the brand new artist starting out and for the massive mega artists too. And the difference is you're just dealing with different problems and economies of scale. You know, when I watched Imogen Heap roll out Mycelia, it was phenomenal. I remember sitting there saying, this is what the future looks like. But at the same time, if I created an Ether wallet and I bought the track, I can still go Apple I, delete all the metadata, and upload it to YouTube or something else. And until that happens, until that's fixed, so that's not possible, we just we kick the problem down the line. So that's why I've always said that if you create, the format creates the database versus the database creating the truth, if you see what I mean. Because in the end, if I have a Bitcoin and I send it to you, I can't double spend that. I can't do it twice, right? That's, again, the beauty of the Bitcoin network or altcoin networks. And so with our digital assets, like music, we don't have that. We don't have that basic mechanism built into any of our architecture. And so the proposal with blockchain was very different in that it said, let's create smart assets, smart tradable assets, and make our music smart and tradable. And therefore, if someone wants to listen to you on Spotify or YouTube or the platform of your own making, and they want to commit commerce with you, then you can facilitate that. Because I have a rule: if someone wants to give me money, I take Bitcoin, I take Ether, whatever you want to pay me, I'll take it. I don't mind. I'm not going to create a no, I'd rather not. And if you think about it, the biggest use case for music upcoming in my mind is VR, virtual reality. And at the moment, if you want to, if I want to use, if I'm listening to a cool song on Spotify by an indie band, and I say, you know what, I want to use that in my virtual reality game, I have to figure out who wrote it, because I can't do a synchronization license in the absence of it. So if you create a VR company, and I hope you do out there, It's Me, Boss Lady, or Skillshare Media, who's listening to this, if you create a VR company and you want to go and license 1,000 songs, you're going to have to talk to every single songwriter and get their permission. Do you know how long that would take? And this is people like, no, I want to pay you. I want to pay you. But what you realize is they don't own the asset. They own a representation of the asset. They own a map to where some of it lies, but they don't actually, you can't give control. And what I mean by that is that how do you make sure, you may say that you're paying the co-writer, but how do you know? How do you know that that account is right? So these are big, gnarly problems that will be solved, and they're being solved right now. But I believe that basically thousands of businesses will be built on top of the blockchain rail, because otherwise we've failed. And every single artist who wants to create a new streaming platform, a new way of doing it, amazing. Great, do that on top of this, but make sure that your publishing information and performance information is locked into a unit that if you do rip it out and try and reinsert it, it won't work. That's the key, because that's the power.
So do you guys have any artists using it right now, and when can people like start using it? I know that you're but do you have like a general outline of when people can start?
Yeah, so basically we have a queuing site right now, which you can get to from the blockchainmusic.com page, and you can sign up there. And if you want to put data in, you can do it, and we can start to help you with that process. We need to get phase 2 and 3 out of the way, so probably in the next 3 to 6 months, and then it'll be kind of prime time usable. It's a really hard project to do. Like, I'm sure anyone who's listening who's developer will know, like what we're describing is quite mighty, and at the same time, we don't want to kind of unleash it until it's industrial strength, because it would be a disservice to the songwriters and artists who've done the hard work of being good and talented and doing all that stuff to release something that wasn't quite ready. So and It's Me, Boss Lady says, what song are you talking about, and why should we listen and share? LOL. I don't know what that means. Yeah, so give us a bit of time, but we're working on it. And there's a queuing site, which as I said, you can sign up for. And if you sign up for there, then we'll get back to you and let you know. There's also a public Slack channel, so you can have conversations with the team. And there's an email list, And you can hit me up, and I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I like the Slack channel. I'm in there, and it's pretty active, so it's not just like one of those Slack channels that just lays there like a little slug in the left-hand side of your.
There's also a ton of people in there who are quite senior at labels and publishing, etc. But they're all in under their private names, so it's kind of been interesting. And look, and I'll say this, the music industry is a jaded place, and I spent years at Pledge, trying to help, and I just kept it was negative, Since I published the first blockchain post, I've had thousands of emails. I cannot keep up with the volume of inbound interest. And I view this as the most positive thing, because ultimately what it means is that these men and women from all over the world are coming together saying, hey, if what you're saying is true and you can make it work, that's going to help the songwriter I just signed, or the app developer who wants to work with music. It's hard for developers to work with music because the development ecosystem favors those with lots of money right now. So a friend of mine showed me an app that he'd built, and a girl at South by showed me an app that she built, and I'm looking at it going like, this is extraordinary. And then they say, so can you help me get the music on it? And I say, sure. Do you have 2 years and $3 to $4 million? No, I just made this over the weekend. No, I know, but to get music on it, you'll have to hire someone, and you'll spend $2 to $3 million doing it. You'll give 20% equity to the major labels, and then you're still gonna have to go song by song trying to get the publishing. And they're like, no, stop. I just want to give money to the artists. I'm like, I know you do, but we've built an ecosystem that doesn't facilitate that, and that's what's got to change. So to me, Spotify needs 1,000 competitors, and YouTube needs 1,000 competitors, because the innovation for how your music, my music, and everyone's music gets out there is going to come from a 19-year-old girl in a country that Donald Trump doesn't want to let come into America, right? But she's going to code an app that will kick everybody's ass, and she has to have access to the music to prove that it works, whether it's a VR app or an AR app. And if we stop her from achieving that, we're killing all of us, right? We're basically giving all the power to YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud and everybody else that has the resources. So when she develops her app, she should not have to have the contacts. She should just have to have the skills. That's all that matters. And then she can hook up with every songwriter, every performer, and be like, hey, I built this cool app. Do you want in? And they're like, sure, because it's in the .bc ecosystem. Help yourself. And if it hits 100,000 plays, you can do a smart contract license with me. And if it hits 10,000, build something that she can use. That way everybody wins. At the moment, you have to have a few $1 million to really punch through, and that's got to stop. So the works themselves should be accessible, usable, malleable, smart assets that an app can come along and say, can I use you? Yes, I can. Because otherwise we're going to stop her from innovating. My daughter's not going to be able to code because she'll be sitting there saying, Daddy, can you help me raise $5 million in venture capital so I can give 20% equity away to 3 major labels and the independents so I can use the songs? And the venture capitalists will say, why would I give you all that money just to give to them? And then you got to do the deal every 3 years. Like we can't exist that way. So this is the only way I could see that would help every songwriter, every artist, every app developer to be able to build on a rail, on a neutral rail, right? That we don't own, that no one owns. That's, again, the public blockchain and the private blockchain. They're going to be 2 separate things, but they will work in conjunction, because the public side says, if you're an app developer and you want to come commit commerce with me, this is how you find me. If it's through an interface that you build, amazing. As long as we can speak the same protocol language, we'll be okay.
Right. Well, I think that's a good time to end. I got
fiery there. Sorry, I was feeling it.
No, I think I think that we're really at like this sort of brave new world of what's going on in the crypto space. I know that I've been through some challenges with Tatiana coin, and now that we're kind of putting out the record and showing it and whatever, it's very exciting time. So I'm glad to see that you're handling the big boys, because that's definitely not not something I can handle necessarily, but that's so cool. So thank you so much for coming on. Where can people catch up with you?
Hit me up at Twitter at Benji K Rogers, BenjiKrogers. And then if you want to join the public Slack channel and join the conversation, just hit me up there or on the website .blockchainmusic.com, and we'll get you connected.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to check out TatianaCoin.com, TatianaMrose.com. And thank you to our sponsors, the Bitcoin CPA, Crypto Compare, Third Key Solutions, Sovereign Tech, Sex and Science Hour, NetKey, Voltoro, and my company, Crypto Media Hub. So see y'all later. Thanks again, Benji. See you. Bye.
See ya.